I was stuck on the side of a mountain road, my chain screaming, bone dry, and covered in rust despite lubing it that morning. I ruined a $150 chain because I trusted the wrong spray. Finding the perfect motorcycle chain lube is a nightmare of sticky messes and false promises. You need something that penetrates, protects, and stays put. Today, I'm breaking down the top 5 motorcycle chain lubes I've rigorously tested to save your chain and your wallet. But which one survives the ultimate stress test? Let's count them down. 5. Muc-Off all-weather motorcycle chain lube. The idea is brilliant on paper. You apply the lube, shine a small UV flashlight on your drivetrain, and you can see exactly where you missed a spot. During my initial application in the garage, this feature was genuinely fun and helpful. The lube sprays on easily, and the coverage seems fantastic right out of the can. It gives you a false sense of security that your bike is perfectly protected for whatever the road throws at it. However, the reality of taking this out for a real-world ride tells a very different story. Despite following the instructions perfectly, letting it set, and wiping off the excess, the fling on this lube is incredibly frustrating. Within 20 miles of hitting highway speeds, the entire left side of my rear wheel, my swing arm, and my boot were speckled with sticky, neon-tinted grease. It seems to struggle to adhere to the O-rings and rollers once the chain heats up and the centrifugal force kicks in. Furthermore, the all-weather claim feels like a massive stretch. In dry conditions, that sticky residue that flung everywhere also remains on the chain, acting as a magnet for road grit, sand, and dust. After a week of commuting, my chain looked like a paste of grinding compound. When it did rain, the water washed away a concerning amount of the lubricant, leaving the side plates vulnerable to flash rust much faster than I anticipated. Ultimately, while the UV application trick is a neat party piece, the actual performance left me spending more time cleaning my motorcycle than riding it. If you only ride at low speeds in the city and wash your bike meticulously every weekend, it might suffice. 4. DuPont Teflon Chain Saver Dry Self-Cleaning Lubricant. I wanted to love this product, especially after dealing with the sticky mess of traditional wet lubes. The allure of a dry lubricant is strong. It promises a clean drivetrain that won't attract dirt. Applying the DuPont Chain Saver is a unique experience. It goes on very thin and watery, completely devoid of that thick, greasy feeling. You have to wait for the carrier solvent to flash off, leaving behind a dry film of Teflon and wax. This self-cleaning marketing claim is based on the idea that the wax will flake off as it gets dirty, taking the grime with it. In extremely dry, dusty off-road environments, this actually works fairly well. My chain stayed surprisingly clean through a sandy trail ride, and my rear wheel was pristine. However, this dry formulation is exactly where the product begins to show its fatal flaws for the everyday street or adventure rider. Because it's so thin and meant to shed off, it offers virtually zero long-term barrier protection against moisture. During a sudden downpour, I could almost hear the chain screaming as the water obliterated the thin Teflon barrier. By the next morning, I was greeted with visible surface rust on a relatively new chain. Because it lacks the tacky adhesion of heavier lubes, you have to reapply this stuff constantly. I found myself needing to spray the chain every 150 to 200 miles just to keep the rollers from sounding like a box of dry rocks, which burns through it incredibly fast. Additionally, the spray mechanism on the can I tested was infuriatingly inconsistent, often dripping as much fluid onto the floor as it sprayed onto the chain. It's a specialized product that excels strictly in dry, dusty conditions. 3. Motorex Adventure Chain Lube. This is where we transition from products that cause me headaches to products I genuinely trust on my own motorcycles. Motorex designed this specifically with modern adventure bikes in mind, meaning it needs to handle long highway stretches and unpredictable off-road detours. The formula features a unique PTFE integration, which immediately sets it apart from the dry films and messy wet sprays I just talked about. When you apply the Motorex Adventure Lube, you instantly notice the premium quality. It sprays on as a slightly milky liquid, allowing it to penetrate deeply past the O-rings and into the pins before it begins to cure. Once it sets up, which takes a good few hours, so I highly recommend applying it the night before a ride. It forms a wonderfully tenacious, slightly tacky film. It feels robust to the touch without being excessively gooey or heavy. I took this lube on a massive 3-day, 1,000-mile trip through changing elevations and sporadic rain showers, and it performed beautifully. The chain ran noticeably quieter, and the shifting felt significantly smoother compared to a dry lube. More importantly, the water resistance is stellar. After riding through a 2-hour torrential downpour, the chain still had a thick protective coating, and there was absolutely no sign of rust the following morning. The fling is also very minimal. You might get a tiny bit on the rim after the initial application, but it wipes off easily and stops immediately. If I have one minor critique, it's that the tackiness does attract a small amount of fine dust if you spend all day on gravel roads. 2. Maxima Chain Wax. For years, riders have sworn by this stuff, and after putting it through thousands of miles of testing, I completely understand the massive cult following. This is a paraffin-based formula laced with cosmoline, a heavy-duty rust preventative famously used by the military. It takes a completely different approach to lubrication than the liquid sprays, focusing on creating a solid, impenetrable barrier. The application process is a bit of a ritual, and you absolutely must apply it to a hot chain immediately after a ride. When the metal is warm, the wax sprays out as a liquid, seeping into every crevice of a chain before cooling and solidifying into a soft, amber-colored waxy coating. Watching it transform from a liquid to a solid protective shell is incredibly satisfying. It completely encapsulates the chain in a golden film that looks and feels bulletproof. Where Maxima Chain Wax truly shines is its absolute zero-fling performance. Once this wax cures, it stays exactly where you put it. You can blast down the highway at triple-digit speeds, and your rear wheel, swing arm, and license plate will remain perfectly spotless. Furthermore, the cosmoline provides industry-leading rust protection. I have left a bike sitting outside in the damp cold for weeks with a heavy coat of this wax, and the chain looked as fresh as the day it was installed. The longevity is simply outstanding, easily giving you 500 to 600 miles of quiet, smooth operation between applications. The only reason it doesn't take the #1 spot is the aesthetic and the long-term buildup. 1. Motul Care Factory Chain. When you need the ultimate, uncompromising protection for your drivetrain, this is the undisputed king. Developed directly from Motul's extensive experience in motorcycle road racing, this lube is engineered to withstand the most extreme stresses, highest temperatures, and most violent centrifugal forces a motorcycle can generate. The first thing you'll notice during application is the distinct color. The factory chain formula sprays on white and contains solid additives, including boron, which provides extreme pressure protection. This white color isn't just for show, it acts as a highly visible indicator, allowing you to see exactly which links have been coated and which ones you've missed, ensuring 100% coverage. It goes on incredibly sticky and requires a solid 10 to 15 minutes to flash off and adhere properly to the metal. I put this lube through the absolute ringer on track days and aggressive canyon rides. Even under the brutal acceleration of a high horsepower bike, the adhesion is mind-blowing. The chain remains fully saturated with lubricant, drastically reducing friction and parasitic power loss. You can physically feel how freely the rear wheel spins and how silently the chain glides over the sprockets. The wear reduction on both the chain and the aluminum sprockets is unparalleled, easily extending the life of your drivetrain by thousands of miles. Despite being incredibly tacky, it resists flinging almost entirely once properly cured, keeping your racing fairings or street plastics completely clean. It also holds its own in the rain, refusing to be washed away by anything short of a pressure washer. While it is certainly a premium product with a price tag to match, the cost of this lube is a fraction of the cost of replacing a premium chain and sprocket kit.